I want to welcome everyone to Nominations Week here in the Senate Finance Committee. This is the first of 3 hearings. We're very pleased to be able to welcome to the committee Wally Adeyemo, who President Biden has nominated to serve as Deputy Treasury Secretary. This is one of the widest ranging economic jobs in the executive branch, so we've got a lot to discuss today. I would also like to welcome our newest members of the Finance Committee, Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts and John Barrasso of Wyoming. We're pleased that they are joining the committee, and Senator Warren is not going to waste any time. In a few minutes, she will be introducing Mr. Adeyemo. So I want to start by talking about the COVID crisis and the COVID jobs crisis. The COVID crisis is unlike any this nation has seen before. It is defined by a sustained level of turmoil for working Americans that no one has seen in generations, while those at the top are doing much better. The COVID economy is essentially split in 2. There are long lines at million-dollar open houses, but there are also long lines at America's food banks. Now, with respect to the COVID jobs crisis, you can find some rosy predictions about GDP growth and jobs if you just spend a little time online. Some say that that's a reason to go small with COVID economic relief. In my view, those estimates wildly underestimate the level of economic pain that people in Oregon and across America are feeling a full year into the pandemic. So, a few facts as we get started. The Fed chair, Mr. Powell, said recently the January unemployment rate wasn't really 6.3%. It was closer to 10% for this country. And for working Americans, particularly those at modestly paid positions, it was 17%. 5 million workers have dropped out of the workforce since the pandemic hit. Most of them were women who've had to sacrifice jobs to provide their own child care. In terms of women's participation in the labor force, the pandemic wiped out all the gains going back 35 years. New data showed last week that jobless claims jumped unexpectedly yet again. Before the pandemic, the highest number of new unemployment claims ever filed in a week came in October 1982. It was 695,000. The number of new jobless claims has now been higher than the pre-pandemic previous peak every single week for 48 weeks in a row. And obviously, the pandemic has taken a terrible human toll. 500,000 lives lost. It's infected and shredded the economic fabric of our country at its most vulnerable points. There's an epidemic of child hunger. Families who are struggling to pay for housing before the pandemic are now months behind on rent or mortgages. Millions and millions of mothers are facing the prospect of an irreversible setback to their incomes, their savings, and their careers. Our goal for the months and years ahead cannot be to simply return to the economy of January 2020. For too many people, the cost of living a dignified life in America was unaffordable even before the pandemic. So the Congress and the Biden administration need to go big with a focus on fresh policies that are going to get more families off this country's economic tightrope and get them off for good. Now, the Treasury Department is going to be right at the center of that effort, and my view is Wally Adeyemo is an ideal choice to serve as Deputy Secretary. You can look high and low, colleagues, for somebody who might who might have something that's not positive to say about Adeyemo, but you can't find him or her because he has such a strong track record of working with people in a positive way. He knows the Treasury inside and out. He brings an extensive economic policy background, including on key international issues that will help us recover here at home and rebuild our alliances abroad. He knows from firsthand experience, having been in the Biden administration, that going small is a big risk. Perhaps most importantly, he's worked closely with members of this committee and staff on a range of issues, and as I say, he's always left the impression that he's knowledgeable and dedicated and effective. I very much enjoyed my meeting with Mr. Adeyemo in December. We talked about the COVID recovery, Treasury's central role in fighting climate change and taking new approaches to address racial disparities baked into our economic policies. As colleagues know, that is going to be a special priority of the Senate Finance Committee in this session. So I'm looking forward to working with Mr. Adeyemo and the Treasury Department on a host of issues, including shell companies, something that didn't get a whole lot of front-page headlines, but last year the Congress passed landmark legislation to end the use of anonymous shell companies in the United States. It took a lot of hard work. Senator Whitehouse was very involved. Senator Crapo was very involved. Senator Grassley was very involved. Senator Rubio and I were heavily involved. So there was a lot of bipartisan effort. And now that the legislation is law, it's up to the Treasury Department to write strong rules and implement it. We're going to want to talk about those challenges this morning. I'll close with just one last point. When Mr. Adeyemo is confirmed, he will be making history as part of a history-making duo. The first African-American Deputy Treasury Secretary will be serving under the first woman Treasury Secretary. And I am glad that the Senate Finance Committee has been part of helping to boost that long overdue progress. Mr. Adeyemo, thank you for your willingness to return to public service